You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYBC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WYBC out of Indianapolis. Whether you're joining us in, unfortunately, the tyrannical regime of Colorado, as our friends over in Aurora are, believe me, we'll talk about that, or you're in Florida, Pennsylvania, out in Oklahoma, you know as well as I do that the Chinese are really not enjoying the current turn of events regarding tariffs in the United States. So what has completely reframed as the world with China or the United States style issue, out of what began as a kind of a populist tariff intervention style kind of go after the entire world versus the United States situation. That kind of a development is really, really, really hurting China. And you say, well, but how do you know that it's hurting China already? A couple of key things. Number one, China has basically thrown open the hatchways on all of their social media accounts. I need you to understand that does not happen. That's not normal. For China to give its embassies in other countries around the world basically free token to slam the United States, that's not a foreign policy Beijing does. That is not. Additionally, from a couple of unnamed sources that must be kept unnamed for safety reasons inside the Chinese continent, civil unrest is already growing as import orders from other countries begin to dwindle. You need to understand the vast, vast, vast majority of the Chinese economy is on import and export. It is. It is based on stealing the IP, stealing the copyrighted information, the documents, the engineering blueprints, all the way from silly little devices that you would buy on Amazon for a couple of bucks, all the way to massive state defense security secrets, are stolen by China and then reverse engineered to create some second-rate, cheaper, hackneyed version of the product across the entire series of industries. And China is not doing too hot. And here's one of the reasons that you know why. They've already made the threat, and we talked about this on the show yesterday, that fine, well then we're not going to allow movies from Hollywood to be played in China right now. Sorry, no one's going to be saying ni hao to Netflix anytime soon. And the Trump administration was like, yeah, is that all you got? And they can't even take the tough stance that Trump's not willing to negotiate with China because according to CNN, after yesterday's announcement of a 145% retaliatory tariff against China, again, just going up and up and up, senior Trump administration officials warned Chinese officials against issuing additional tariffs against the United States, while stating once again that Chinese President Xi Jinping should request a call with U.S. President Donald Trump. And now here's where, if you're not paying close attention, you're going to miss it. This morning, U.S. officials woke up to China raising its tariffs against American imports from 84% to 125% and no call request from President Xi. All China has is just trying to ratchet up the import tariffs. Now you need to understand, someone has to pay the import tariff taxes in both countries. The United States imports goods from most of the known world. We have a very large import economy on specialty goods. The United States does not rely on other countries for staple goods. China does. You need to understand that when the United States drops major import tariffs on goods from China, oh no, you're not going to be able to buy the really cheap, sticky broomstick from Beijing. Oh no, that new cheap light you were going to buy, or that, oh man, this new knockoff Sony JJC remote costs another $20 or $40. You may not buy it. Well, that's not good because that means that the export companies in China aren't going to be able to push the product. What kind of stuff is China importing? Stuff they can't make there. Those are necessary staple building products, necessary staple foods, things like base textile materials, base chemical materials, things like some tech products the Chinese can't replicate and fake their way through. That kind of stuff is economy crippling. Who are they going to get it from? Russia? Russia doesn't produce those either. India is interested in giving the same middle finger to China that the United States is in the middle of giving. And Scott Bessent is currently orchestrating deals. Scott Bessent is not worried about the EU right now. If the EU wants to, play footsie with China and get a bunch of Chinese electric cars, driven around on their streets with a little tariff deal there, well, whatever. That's not enough to stop the bleeding. Right now, the United States is in the middle of orchestrating deals between Vietnam and South Korea and Japan. What you are probably going to see is a new South Pacific trading partnership that is not only linked around free trade deals with the United States, but the agreement of simultaneous tariffs against China. That bankrupts China. China ain't got a whole lot to begin with, so how do they respond? If China really did have its foot on the pedal now in a way that suggested calmness and in control, China would be threatening openly possible military action against Taiwan. They ain't doing that. They would be openly discussing the idea of a mass sell-off of U.S. Treasury yields and bonds. They're not doing that. Because if China moves against Taiwan right now, or drops all of its holdings on U.S. debt right now, well, then China loses all leverage. Loses all leverage against the United States. The United States could absolutely withstand those things right now. One of the great things that Pete Hegseth has done right here, right now, in this day and age, has been broadcasting real-life, actual-use weapon systems of the United States. What has China done? It's debuted like a knockoff F-22, kinda, that has only been shown in one video and no other specs released. Just a lot of promises. They've been caught on their fake DeepSeek super duper AI that's already been proven to be mostly a fraud. That's all they got. That's all they have. China has massive ghost towns right now in half of the country. They are failing on every front. They've opened their embassies to surf the open internet. That is not normal. So what do they have? What's China's big push and strategy right now? Well, they're going to try to claim that America is just a bunch of fat people, and how they do it is, it ain't landing. So they're pushing these AI videos out of overweight Americans in sweatshops making iPhones and CPU chips and things like that. They're trying to make fun of, manufacturing of the NVIDIA chips. Those aren't made in China. China can't make those. So China's trying to do well, then you're really fat. How about that? Now, do you think I'm strong? Revealing that you're jealous of the United States manufacturing prowess, so you have to tell us, well, you wish you were working in our sweatshops. That ain't landing. It's desperate. Z's got nothing. Who are they going to rely on? Russia? China? It ain't happening because China is being undercut by the United States going directly to Iran and to China. Again, here's regarding Iran today with Carolyn Levitt.
Well, I have spoken to both the president and also his national security team who will be engaged in these discussions. These will be direct talks with the Iranians, and I want to make that very clear. I also spoke to the president just last night about his goal when it comes to Iran, and he has reiterated repeatedly to all of you publicly and also privately to his team here at the White House, his ultimate goal and the ultimate objective is to ensure that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon.
Now, we want to talk about this real quick. And I got to send the radio folks over to commercial, so I got to be real hustle quick on this one. The Steve Witkoff to Russia and the Trump administration meeting with Iran tomorrow, directly, not through Oman, directly, and saying, time's up. Either no restrictions on observing you dismantling your nuclear program, or it ain't going to be there Saturday, because we're going to rent a few of those B-2s over to Israel and you won't be here anymore. Try us. And remember a couple of months ago during the Biden administration, how you saw massive military exercises between Russia and North Korea, between Russia and China, between China and Iran, and Russia and Iran. This axis, as George W. Bush used to put, that axis of evil. All right, that's not functional. We're getting word that tensions are growing between Russia and China because China's a lot more broke than Russia thought they were. That's a problem. Because Russia's gone all in on this war with Ukraine. They can't even take over one of the most corrupt nations in Europe, whose army is staffed by farmers. And I'm not talking about the Vietnamese kind. So it's not looking too good for this like pseudo axis, this like BRICS alliance over there in the East. And it's not going to get any better because now Trump is starting to develop momentum. Radio crew will see you in just a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. All right, let's talk about some other situations running. The SCOTUS ruling last night, 9-0 decision. And the media covered this in a way that portrayed probably one of the greatest lacks of comprehension in reading or basic literacy that I have ever seen. So the Supreme Court ruled that regarding Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, the individual from Maryland, from El Salvador, that came to the United States and was suspected as being a member of the Mexican cartel, the MS-13. And so, before they were ready to deport him, the administrative error is that they weren't set to deport this individual until later. They deported him early, by mistake, to El Salvador, where he is currently in prison. And there was a big national kick up and stir. Oh, you didn't even know if this guy was MS-13 who was on his way to pick up his dear, sweet, lovable autistic son. How could the Trump administration be so heartless? Even though separate entities, not at all associated with, for example, political motivations at the time, stated that there was likely evidence this guy's a member of MS-13. And again, the innocent until proven guilty thing is for U.S. citizens and to a degree for legal immigrants to this country here on visa. Illegal immigrants married to people in the United States do not get the whole innocent until proven guilty thing. You came here illegally. And again, trying to evade police forces and federal forces again and again and again and again is not really a good look. So the Supreme Court ruled, however, that because it was not proven that this guy was a member of MS-13 directly, that the United States would have to, basically the lower court said, well, you need to get the guy back by midnight. And the Trump administration said, we can't do that. And Chief Justice Roberts issued kind of a stay on a stay and said, no, that's silly. And the Supreme Court looked over the case and said, all right, here's what you have to do. We're going to rule sort of in favor of the court and then sort of against the rule of the court. And so SCOTUS wrote, the application is granted in part and denied in part, subject to the direction of this order. The rest of the court's district order remains in effect but requires clarification on remand. The order properly requires the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. A bunch of people in the media have suggested, very foolishly, that this means that, oh, see, Garcia, he's ordered to be brought back to the United States. No, that's not the order. That's not the order at all. What the Supreme Court said is the U.S. government needs to petition El Salvador, which, by the way, this guy was wanted in El Salvador before any of this. He has been on record committing capital crimes in El Salvador. So El Salvador wants him anyway. But the Supreme Court says for the charge of being an MS-13 gang member, which the United States does not yet have sufficient proof of, he hasn't been in a hearing in the U.S. for the MS-13 charge here. He hasn't been able to deny it here. You need to facilitate his removal, if possible, from El Salvador to the United States? No. Just out of the prison in El Salvador, and then somewhere, somehow, there needs to be a hearing conducted so the United States can ascertain if this guy was truly a member of MS-13. Nowhere did the Supreme Court rule this guy gets a free ticket back to the United States. It's not there. It's not. Now, we can, and again, that's why it was a 9-0 decision, by the way. So, we're going to touch on that a little bit more in a bit. There's a situation also about an Air or Space Force colonel also being booted. The head of Tufnik Space Force Air Force Base, the 821st Space Base Group over in Greenland. And long story short, after J.D. Vance went and talked about how important Greenland was to the national security of the United States, the colonel then wrote a very political email and then sent it out. And what she said did in fact get her canned, and it was 100% justified. And the bleeding and the crying from the left reveals that, yet again, no one has any idea whatsoever how the military works. So basic reading comprehension and civics is the order of the day. We're going to be back in a second to chat about that. Got to pick up the radio crew from commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
What a fool believes. Okay. Colonel Susan Myers, the commander of the 821st Space-Based Group, which oversees the military base in Pituffik, Greenland, sent out an email to a lot of people after Vice President J.D. Vance visited. She wrote, quote, "Spent the weekend thinking about Friday's visit, the actions taken, the words spoken, and how it must have affected each of you," end quote. Okay, I remember these kind of emails when I was in IPS. When I was a science administrator in Indianapolis Public Schools, we would get emails like this after there was some kind of a political event. For example, like Donald Trump would get up and he would say, "We have to be proud of the United States of America. It's the best country in history." And then we would get an email from some equity officer in the Indianapolis Public Schools. We know how it must have felt watching someone praise the United States. Oh, the feelings one must have felt. Like they were walking us through menopause. It was ridiculous. And that is exactly how this email reads. You can always sniff it right in the beginning. "I spent a lot of time this weekend thinking about like feelings and emotions," and as Kamala Harris would say, "the significance of time." The colonel wrote, "I do not presume to understand current politics." Then shut your mouth. Anyway, I'm sorry. "I do not presume to understand current politics, but what I do know is the concerns of the U.S. administration discussed by Vice President Vance on Friday are not reflective of Pituffik Space Base. I commit, for as long as I am lucky enough to lead this base, all of our flags will fly proudly together." That email was sent to all base personnel, including those on staff in a contractual basis from Denmark and Greenland. Okay, boys, girls, and squirrels, let's have a little bit of a conversation on military etiquette and rules regarding what you are and are not allowed to do from a communicative standpoint. When you are wearing the uniform, when the flag of the United States is on your shoulder, you are not allowed to express political opinions. Why? Because your opinions in front of the public are the opinions of the commander-in-chief. And the commander-in-chief of the United States military sent Vice President J.D. Vance to Greenland for what? Who cares what you think, what, or why? You're a colonel. You're not even brass. So shut your nonsensical, half officer rank goofiness, part of the Space Force. Shut your mouth and carry out your post. You have things to do. And by the way, if you have ever been in a situation in which you had a boss who disagreed with another boss, do you think that the organization moves cohesively? No, it does not. There are few things that are as terrifying or as frustrating for a non-commissioned officer, someone of the sergeant ranks, than two officers above them who are completely in disagreement with each other. That is not good. That means there is trouble brewing, there is trouble coming. That is insubordination. Also, by the way, you don't get to decide what reflect the opinions of a base. An officer's opinions are to carry, the duties of an officer are to carry out the operational requirements of the officer above them. The nonsense, the absolute, she acts like that J.D. Vance ordered Kristallnacht to all of the Danes in Greenland. Stupid. And so she was canned. Colonel Susanna Myers, commander of Pituffik Space Base, was removed by command by Colonel Kenneth Clock, commander of Space Base Delta 1, on April 10th for loss of confidence in her ability to lead. And that would be how that goes. And the left is losing their ever-loving mind because they don't understand that mid-level Karens who think that they get to interpret the entire world for their sake and their need, and they're going to do their own leadership and their own style, is first of all, that's not how any company should work, much less how the United States military should work. So good on the U.S. military for getting rid of that particular goober. She can go join an HR department somewhere. We are unfortunately reaching the end of the tenure of producer Reeve Wermus. She has finished her internship with the Daily Signal. For the last couple of weeks, she has been sending me horrible clips with no context whatsoever other than a few words that I don't get to watch beforehand, and then forces all of us here watching the show to suffer through them. And so for the last time, we will go through a few of the reasons why the left is in such complete disarray. This says, a fat trans man complains about skinny people buying clothes. All right.
Extra large t-shirt, you basically can fit in the medium. Oh, thank you for asking. It's because I...
Hello. I am a plus-size trans person. I don't look it right now. I'm presenting very femme, but I am a trans man. I just wanted to come on here and say that,
You might be able to tell from the lips and the chin and the cheekbone structure and the hair and the eyebrows and the eyes and the shoulders and the boobs that I'm not a man. You don't say. You don't say.
Extra large t
at all, but if you feel so uncomfortable in that body, imagine how we feel and not having access to those clothes because someone smaller than us has purchased those clothes previously, and like it's really hard to have access to clothes that fit plus size people, and plus size trans people need those oversized clothes.
You've heard of blackface. Now get ready for fat face. Yay! Oh, can't imagine why nobody's rushing to flock to the DNC. This next one, we're apparently ready to crown a queen. We're ready to crown the absolute royalty of identity politics. Here we go.
I am Filipino-Japanese, second generation. I'm a disabled trans man, but I'm also a Medicaid patient. I'm also a person who uses food stamps. I'm also a person who has been through houselessness in this country.
Houselessness!
I'm also a person who has gone through substance use and addiction. And most of all, I am a patient of Planned Parenthood.
Oh my Lord.
That's a mate. Was it 10, producer Nick? Thank you. 10. 10 identities. We have found the queen of the Olympics. Step aside, David Hogg. There's a new leader of the Democratic Party. And his name / identity / houselessness. Houseless. Boy, what a magical time to be. I just can't see why. All right, this next one will be for the live stream crew, unfortunately. A radio crew will catch you in a second with Rebecca Downs. This is the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. So, Chris Matthews went on MSNBC, which that's the only place that allows Chris Matthews back on anymore, and started talking about how the United States should not be producing its own, or apparently doesn't have lumber. Like, we need to import lumber from Canada because the United States has no way to do it. I was going to do the Chris Matthews impression, but it sounds just like Ben Shapiro's Chris Matthews, come on the show. Doesn't understand lumber. Chopping down trees. Chris Matthews, not stealing this impression from Ben Shapiro. Chris Matthews, go.
But there's another thing. I watched on the evening news last night, one of the other networks, and I watched the issue of lumber. Now, you see, we get so much of our lumber, our 2x4s, from Canada. Where we get it from? Canada. We get our newsprint from up there for newspapers. The fact is we get it. What are we going to do? Have more lumber made in the United States now? What is our plan now? Oh, we're not going to import wood, so we're going to make more wood? We're going to create more wood? Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah, there are these things outside. They kind of stick in the ground. They're called trees. There's a lot of them. Some of them are not really nice, old, beautiful trees. They're just like regular, standard, like poplars and spruce. Pine, slap them on down, put them through the sawmill. And then there's this really cool thing about agriculture. You can plant more of them. I too am shocked by the revelation. Apparently it's a fairly new technology. Only about 6,000, years old. Really exciting stuff. So I don't know. I guess he's expecting that the Canadians just like paint maple syrup in a pentagram and summon the wood from the ground. Just amazing. And then last but not least, Jasmine Crockett, because God bless this country. Jasmine Crockett has told us to connect the dots. I'm so thrilled.
Realm. So I am telling you that this is a failed thing, but we've got to do better to connect the dots and let people know the reason you can't afford a home is because of these failed immigration policies. The reason you're not going to be able to afford your food is because of these failed immigration policies. And the same can go for the hospitality industries, where we have so many of those in the hospitality industry that are saying they do not have the workers that they need right now.
I want you to picture, just briefly, just for me, someone in 1870 in Atlanta, and they're walking through town, and they're saying, now see over here, we got this beautiful hotel, and the hospitality's gone down just a touch because the, insert racial expletives, are no longer working here, and therefore it's more expensive. Now see over here at the grocers, you see any black people carrying the crates around? Isn't it terrible? They took away our slaves, they did. Jasmine Crockett. Boy, the Democrats are just so desperate right now that no one can tell her to shut up because she's one of the only people on the left that has momentum. And it is the absolute worst kind of momentum. So here's an exclusive story from Fred Lucas over at our own The Daily Signal. The Federal Election Commission, the FEC, has opened up a probe into Representative Jasmine Crockett's donations. Because a lot of donations, over 50, were made through Act Blue. You know, the ones that were funneling foreign funds through gift cards and stuff. Yeah. It appears that she might have perhaps received a large series that are not quite legal of donations from donors, like over $16,000 in political contributions from an elderly retired couple. We'll keep you up to date on that. So hot water potentially in the future. We're going to cut over to Rebecca Downs from townhall.com. You're going to love it. It's Hillary Clinton time. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on The Daily Signal. A shocker for Harrington over on CNN, who expected a major boost for the Democratic Party among middle-class voters in party margin support for individuals who believe that either the Republican Party or the Democrat Party cares more about people like you. Check this clip out.
This, to me, is one of the most shocking pieces of poll data that I truthfully have seen this year, or maybe in any prior year.
Really?
Yes, really, because I want you to take a look. Cares more about the needs for people like you. You mentioned it, Kate Ball. We got a tie, even after this tariff war had already started, split between Democrats and Republicans on how people feel. Which party cares more for needs of people like you? And why is that so surprising? Because I want you to take a look at prior years. Democrats always lead on this question. Back in 2017, before the 2018 midterms, 13-point lead. 2005, a 23-point lead for Democrats. 1994, which was a big Republican year, a 19-point lead for Democrats. And now, all of a sudden, a tie? All of a sudden, the Democrats, who are the party of the people, no more. We get a tie on this question, on a question that has traditionally overwhelmingly been a Democratic advantage. Which party cares more for the needs of people like you? It's truly something I would not have expected to see, especially after this tariff war had begun.
Where does it show that Republicans are making the most gains?
Yeah, again, you talk about party of the people. Look at this. Cares for the needs of people like yourself. Look here, we got non-college, we got those with a college degree. Among those with a college degree, it's the same score. Plus 18 points for Democrats in 2017, plus 18 points for Democrats now. But look among non-college voters. Look here. It was +7 for Democrats in 2017, and now Republicans had overwhelmingly gained, +9 points. That is, the gains have been concentrated, at least within the last decade, among voters without a college degree. The working class, that is where Republicans have gained even since the beginning of the Donald Trump administration. The Democratic base is now those with a college degree. Among the working class, those without a college degree, Republicans have overwhelmingly gained on this all-important question of which party cares more for people like yourself.
Your reference points are, as you were pointing out, just before a midterm election. So obviously, let's kind of look at that. Where do things stand for the fight for Congress?
Right. Okay. So you have this question, right? And then there's the question, ultimately, are Republicans going to get punished in this midterm election, in part because that's normally what happens, the party in power gets punished, but also because of this tariff war? And I want you to take a look here at the generic congressional ballot. Where we were in April of 2017, Democrats were already ahead by 7 points. In November of 2024 on this question, it was a tie, and then, of course, Republicans won control. Where are we now? It's Democrats, but just by a point. This looks very much still like what we saw in 2024, not like what we saw in 2017. If Democrats think they automatically have a ticket back to control of the House, I'd say, hold on a second. Republicans still have a real shot at this, despite all of Trump's theatrics over the last month with this tariff war.
Tied is wild. Again, right now, with the way the market is currently doing the roller coaster, right now, with Trump taking some risks and gambles, as they were, you wouldn't expect to see such a powerful move towards the Republican Party, towards, of course, President Trump as well. Rebecca Downs from townhall.com joins us for a bit of the down low. Right off the top of your head, we could talk about why Americans really like some of the things that Trump has been talking about. What are some of the reasons that the public is sprinting away from the alternative?
So the Democratic Party is searching for, in a very desperate way, for relevancy. They don't really have a leader. The quote unquote leaders they do have are far leftist members like Jasmine Crockett, for instance. I keep reminding people she is in the most blue district in Texas. And the Cook Political Report, their partisan voter index, just came out for 2025, so we can use those new numbers. According to those numbers, she has the 31st out of 435, the 31st most liberal district in the country. And this is their spokesperson. It's not a good look for the party, besides how far left she is. She, of course, says racist things against Black Republicans like Byron Donalds, as I believe you covered.
I'll stop you there. You could list like the groups that Crockett has targeted in like racist rants, but that's a long list, and that we'd be here for a while. So you can just say she says racist things and then just slap a period at the end of that sentence. Okay, so put Crockett aside. They're searching. I don't know. They're searching for soul. They're searching for love. I don't know what they're searching for, but I'm seeing this large motley of individuals that are coming forward to try to take advantage of the low bench, because there is a reason. I don't know. We've talked about this before, that whenever there is a hole that opens up in your industry, if it's been long enough that hole hasn't been filled by a competent person, that you start to think, man, maybe I could fill that role. Maybe even I could do that. Yeah. That's the Dems right now. They've somehow dragged the corpse of Hillary Clinton out from her weird husband's libraries and nude paintings to preach to the public once again. Tell us about this.
So Hillary Clinton, throughout the week, she was posting about the SAVE Act, which common sense piece of legislation. It passed the House last year, I believe. It also passed the House this year and has an even better chance of being made into law with President Trump in office and a Republican Senate. It is it's an 80-20 issue. It's a bill that says only citizens can vote in our elections. The
gall.
Right? It's literally an 80-20 issue.
Well, I mean, it's more like an 80-10 issue. I'm going to take 10 points off for questionable voting practices in the past.
Sure. So, yeah, that's a very good point. She went with fear-mongering of levels we have not seen, as only Hillary Clinton could fear-monger.
Fear-mongering levels never seen before. Hillary Clinton.
Very fitting from Trump, harkening back to that 2016.
So what's
race.
this fear mongering? Break it down. Give us the down low here.
So there's one post, I believe it was sent out on Wednesday. She cited a far left group called Indivisible, which is, of course, against this bill. So that's already a biased source she's citing, claiming that women who got married and changed their last name would not be eligible to vote. She said 69 million women, they're not going to be able to vote. They're going to have trouble. Look at the Republicans disenfranchising women. And what really irked me is that she said, call your representatives, call your senators once the bill passed and tell them that, we don't stand for this. Why put all women in a box like that?
And I don't even think that they put landlines in kitchens anymore for women to call from. I mean, my goodness. I mean, I don't know how women are going to be able to stop doing the dishes or the laundry or cooking long enough to call the representative in the first place. Right? Do you even know how? Right. And this is Hillary Clinton's view of women, I guess. That
again, the 2016 election and why she lost.
Also, aren't the majority of married women Republicans?
Well, that's a sore spot for her. So is she trying to put them in a box to try to get back at them for voting for Trump in 2016?
Also, Rebecca, I have it from reliable sources that both of us, individually, we are both in fact married. Mm-hmm. And I happen to know that you, as a woman who are involved in the political atmosphere of this present time, of the significance of this time, you may have voted once before, maybe even multiple times. Separate elections, of course, not multiple times in the same election.
Says you.
When you, how long has it been since you've been to Chicago? Can you help us out here? You're a woman. Sure. Did you change your last name when you got married?
I did not.
You did not. Okay. Do you know individuals who told you that when you were getting ready to get married, that one of the reasons you should or shouldn't change your name is because it's going to mess up your voting?
No, I know women who, that's what I was saying. I absolutely do know women who did change their name. I know no women who lamented it was going to be difficult for them to vote.
Okay. So what you're telling me is that it was not a selling issue when that decision came up before you to think, well, man, what if I get disenfranchised? Or, they're like, hey, you're not Rebecca Downs, you're Rebecca Thurgerbsberger, or whatever the name might have been. That kind of crazy logic is, of course, appealing. However, I have been with my wife to go and vote. And I remember in Indianapolis that they checked her ID, and her ID, she didn't have the new license yet for the first time that we went to go vote. And it wasn't a big deal. You just pull out another piece of documentation that's like, oh yeah, here, we got married. Do people not hold on to their marriage certificates? Do you just throw that in the trash with the wedding cards?
Oh, goodness. Those real life stories are very important, though. No, that's important that you share that. And Chip Roy, who's the House bill sponsor, I love how he was posting about the bill throughout Wednesday and Thursday. Mm-hmm. And he actually posted his response via the Will Cain show as a quoted repost to Hillary Clinton, because coward that she is, I think for the most part, unless it's involving children or your family, especially when people go after children. I think if you restrict your replies, you're a coward. She restricted her reply, so everybody was doing quote reposts, and he put out a quote repost of his appearance on Will Cain talking about that you just, there's ways to get that fixed so it does not disenfranchise women.
But also, I'm looking at the state statutes. I've gone through the different state and Commonwealth statutes. I've looked through, and they have measures in place. They've had measures in place for this since the amendment went through a long diggity dang time ago. I don't know if you know this. I don't know how much of a history buff you are. Women have been changing their name regarding marriage and divorce for, quoth Edgar Allan Poe, a long freaking time. So I'm not seeing. Also, apparently, do you know Native Americans apparently also can't vote now? I've seen this rumor going around. So I guess that as a federally registered member of the Cherokee tribe, I can send up smoke signals to try to prove my identity, or go out and hunt a buffalo to print the passport on. I don't understand where these people are making up these rumors. They think it's not going to get fact checked in today's day and age.
Well, it does. And they're desperate. It's embarrassing. It shows how desperate they are.
Really? You think that making up rumors about black women like Sonny Hostin did, because as Sonny Hostin says they're too stupid to get an ID, or Hillary Clinton saying that married women are, I guess, too busy washing dishes to make sure their legal documents are in order.
I think
Native Americans out there were hunting buffalo can't get passport. Like, what the? That's desperate to you?
It shows to me the bigotry of soft expectations. Is that what I'm thinking of?
I mean, these aren't just soft. These are low. This is like deep mind. This is like the mind that you hold federal retirement documents in low. Like center of the earth, low expectations. You've got Jasmine Crockett saying that brown people need to be picking the crops because the black people aren't going to do it, which is so problematic. It's a Dr. Phil segment.
Yeah, many levels.
And then you've got Hillary Clinton going, I don't know how all of those silly little women are going to change their names legally. Like, this is an amazing time to watch politics.
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad Mike Lee, who's the Senate bill sponsored, he called her out on it brilliantly as well.
I mean, Mike Lee on social media, Mike Lee anywhere is just dangerous because he doesn't care. I'm pretty sure that if given the opportunity and there was the space in the congressional halls, people have like different flags outside their offices.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure if there were allowed to be statues and lawn furniture, I'm pretty sure he would erect a middle finger statue to the rest of Congress. And I'm here for it.
That wouldn't surprise me. I love how where you talk about him on social media, his account is literally called Based Mike Lee. That's his real account.
Is in fact based and not through low expectations. Rebecca Downs, townhall.com. Always a blast to have you on to give us the down low on some of this stuff. Thank you for what you guys over.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere. And I mean it. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
We were going to do some mail time, but I have been informed by the producers that we've got to dig into some more of the quick news roundup because God knows there's just way too much. So one of the radio markets that we're a part of is over in Colorado, and Governor Polis, who was supposed to be one of the guys on the left that was like moderate and just chill and not really too aggressive or too partisan, signed a law into effect today that would issue a ban on a lot of semi-automatic weapons that have detachable magazines, which is a very gross violation of the Second Amendment of the United States. And, you know, that's one thing, sure. I mean, obviously, the constitutionality of a bill, that's very important to talk about. We can talk about the rights. What I want to point out, though, is how on every single of these issues that Americans have, like, serious concerns, right? That the way that Polis describes this bill in his little press gaggle conference, where he has, like, the rejects from the Fat Albert crew behind him, and I guess, like, it looks like a bouncer from a BDSM club. And he's like talking about this bill as though this is going to like protect everyone in Colorado from problems. Here's Jared Polis. He signed the bill. That was so important. He's so stunning, so brave. He's so wonderful. And then he gets in front of everyone and he starts telling us about how it's going to make everything better.
This legislation builds on our commitment to improve public safety, reduce gun violence, uphold our freedom. I really think this bill will make Colorado and Colorado communities safer and prevent both accidents as well as reduce gun violence. And ultimately that means saving lives and while protecting our Second Amendment rights.
He can't
and of course
explain
upholding Colorado's proud tradition of sports shooting and hunting, which are popular among many residents of our state and will continue to be with this bill. And I would add that many sports shooters and hunters will also be safer again, with the knowledge they learn about proper use and storage, and it will, in many ways, prevent accidents in those areas as well.
Okay, just a quick thing here. If you believe that the Second Amendment of the United States is talking about sports shooting and hunting, you should be slapped repeatedly. And not, because you're not allowed to have a differing opinion, but because the only reason I can assume one would read the Constitution of the United States and believe that the Second Amendment was talking about hunting deer, that there must have been some kind of a cognitive disconnect that only a firm hand against the head could cure. The Second Amendment of the United States explicitly states that it is for the protection of the populace, the people, against the tyranny of an overreaching government. And you don't need to take my word for it. The founders explicitly stated this in the Federalist Papers, in early court rulings, in conversations and editorials they wrote for like the Pennsylvania Gazette. I mean, this is very clearly stated. Polis has no idea what he's talking about at all. And by the way, I would like to point out that in the case of the school shooters that he's talking about here, the people committing the school shootings are already breaking state and federal laws. And adding another law on top of it doesn't, in fact, suddenly go, wait a minute, hold on there, Jim. I was going to go shoot up this local school, but I noticed that instead of committing 8 felonies, now we're committing 9. I do have a rule. 8 felonies is a good time, but 9 is too far. That doesn't happen. People who understand that, this is supposed to be one of the people who was a possible pick for Kamala Harris VP. Well, okay, given that she chose the chorus kick Tim Walz dad Bonanza, who's friends with school shooters, apparently, I can see the likeness. All right, elsewhere in the news, Bernie Sanders, in his crusade against the rich and the oligarchy, well, not for himself. In himself, he buys himself the mansions with the pudding and the yogurt, and his friends over at Ben & Jerry's with his honeymooning in Moscow. Bernie Sanders gets in front of the public after campaigning around with AOC, who is like Bernie Sanders but has boobs. And he gets in front of the country and says very clearly, listen, the young people are fired up. Basically, he says what Chuck Schumer said about being aroused, but he says it a little bit better. However, whenever you have theater major kids behind you, so like not normal people, but like the really weird kid behind you, and they're all like standing there, when you ask them to cheer about how like excited they are, it doesn't look too good.
We are the union. All right.
Come on. Come on. First of all, this is one of the reasons why I do encourage people to actually go look up some cadences. The Army, there are some cool cadences out there to learn. There are some really great cheers to learn. But even at like the Christian camps, like at the Wilds in the Carolinas or Northland up in Wisconsin, we had really great chants and cheers. They were a little old and dusty, but they're better than we are the union. And by the way, I did hear someone in the background accidentally say tigers. Like, we are the tigers in the background. And then she sounds so depressed saying it again. You're on national television. You're behind Bernie Sanders, the leader of the next socialist revolution. Pudding for everyone and only one flavor of deodorant because they look the same and I keep eating the deodorant thinking that it is pudding. You've got such a chance to look energized with your stance against Elon Musk and the oligarchy. And what do you get? We are the union. They paid me to be here. And then at the end, she actually says, yeah, like in a monotone, as if someone on SNL was making fun of being lackluster. She's like, yeah. And I swear I've watched this video twice. I see someone yawn in the background. So yeah, the youths are energized, man. Fantastic stuff. Fantastic. All right, this last one is also particularly fantastic here. This is one that's for the books.
On high-end pieces. Since fiscal year 2021, executive agencies have spent more than $4.6 billion on furniture alone. That amount could buy 9.2 million American families a modest $500 kitchen table. During the peak years of the COVID emergency, from 2020 to 2022, agencies spent $3.3 billion on furniture, even as work migrated to Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
The SEC managed to spend $700,000 furnishing a single conference room in New York. And social distancing guidelines failed to keep even the Centers for Disease Control from buying solar-powered picnic tables with charging ports.
Solar-powered picnic tables, guys! Yes! That's what we needed. Okay, so for those who hate Elon Musk and you hate Doge, all right, you don't like it because of political. If you can't step away from the partisan stuff for a second to suggest that maybe the CDC, while everyone was working from home, was buying solar-powered picnic tables while you were locked in your house and told that you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't go to family funerals, if you think that's not waste or abuse, you're lost. You're hopelessly lost. The kind of lost where you wonder why there are really the two political parties in the country right now are the populist side of the Republican Party and kind of the Bushian corporate side of the Republican Party, with traditional conservatives in the middle, depending on the day, going with either group. No one's even really talking about the left. Oriented, as we talked about earlier. It's because of this. And it'll continue to be. We're going to stick around for some bonus tonus over on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, folks, those who are sticking around. Billions of dollars on furniture. And you can make the case, well, I mean, you know, sometimes you get expensive stuff. I grew up in the Midwest. I was not a wealthy child by any stretch of the imagination. I do want to make it quite clear, because I guess one of the criticisms that hit the show over the last week was if I was enjoying being like a super big, grifter, doing the show with the Daily Signal and spending all of this money. So I'm just going to let you know very briefly here. These two bookcases that are behind me are from IKEA. We got them originally to kind of be in the house library before I did any kind of broadcasting whatsoever. The table that is right here that I do the news kind of broadcast from, it's like one of those $20 black Walmart table, like writing desk things. At the time it was $20. Now it's probably like $35, $40, or $50, I suppose. The black swivel chair I'm sitting on is also inexpensive. I mean, even the panels behind me, those are two of the Home Depot, like kind of false panel kind of things. Both of them were like, $25, $30 each. I don't understand the desperate desire to spend billions with a B, billions of dollars on federal furniture. What in the world is wrong with people? I don't get it. I just don't understand. And then, by the way, I'll never forget this. When I was finishing up in Indianapolis Public Schools as my science administration position, I was tasked with going around to various buildings and making sure that we weren't actually throwing away, as they were clearing out these unused buildings, that there wasn't anything super valuable being thrown away. And I found out afterward that I had saved like very fancy like incubators, because I was a science teacher administrator, so I know the value. If I see, an oscilloscope, or I see an incubator, or I see oh man, the name always escapes me. The really hot water sterilizer. Think on that one for me. It's that term. That basically various lab medical devices that are really nice, that people would really enjoy to have. There were lying in trash cans and in classrooms. And I found out later that after I had set aside these things and were like, guys, these things are worth like thousands of bucks a piece. Thousands of dollars a piece. Maybe, just kind of maybe. Autoclave, thank you, autoclave. I mean, you get to the end of this particular journey, and I found out that they threw that stuff away anyway, thousands of dollars. I set aside like, hey, we could donate it, we could resell it, because, for example, dentist offices can use autoclaves and things to clean things like dentures and toothing. We could sell the stuff and then use the money to take off the top. And I grew up that way. You shop at Kohl's, you shop the sales, you go to Marshall's, you go to TJ Maxx. I mean, this is, good Lord, I think I either got this from, it's a chap's jacket. There ain't nothing fancy or special about this. This particular shirt I picked up at the Goodwill in Greenfield. I mean, I don't understand. Maybe that's just me, whatever. But the idea that the federal government can just drop billions of dollars because they know you're never going to look twice. You're never going to check. And, you're never going to, figure that kind of stuff. Half the comments are actually commented autoclave. Yeah, I could have looked at the comments on that one particularly. All right, we're going to do 2 quick questions for mail time real quick here that came in, or 3 questions actually, real quick for mail time. We'll get these done and then get everyone out to the weekend. So without further ado, all right, the first question this evening comes from Nacho Pillow during the show and says, maybe the left isn't coordinated right now because it's trying to fend off a kleptocratic, fascist, imperialist dictatorship. Okay. If you are going to make the argument that that the Trump administration is doing some type of weird thievery situation, you're going to make the case that the Trump administration is, in fact, a kleptocracy, then you're going to need to provide some specific kind of evidence that the political power of the Trump administration is being used to specifically enrich billionaires. Because I've watched the Trump administration and the statements released. The statements that the Trump administration has made are, in fact, far more to the political left of the 90s, where they're saying that, like, Trump has argued that the rich need to pay more over the last couple of weeks in tax policy. I mean, if you're going to make the argument the Trump administration is like walking around enriching billionaires, I'm going to need to see some evidence. Elon Musk isn't being paid a dime. And you think that billionaires are making money back when the Fed cuts money? Show me how. So no, then the fascistic argument, again, you're going to need to show me how, because so far the Trump administration has functionally obeyed the court orders, even the ones that it didn't like. I'm going to see the actual fascism over here. Because so far, the Trump administration has reduced the overall size of federal government. You know how many federal governments have been reduced in size under fascism? None. Italy, tripled in size in government. Nazi Germany, quadrupled in government size in 3 years. And Trump lowers the executive reach of the government because, again, the president is in charge of executive agencies, right? We remember reading Article 2 of the Constitution. So these are people that the president can order around. If you're a member of the federal government, you work for an executive agency, your boss is Trump, period. It's not Congress. It's not the Supreme Court. There are employees in the Hill staffers. There are employees in the Congressional Budget Office. There are employees in the judicial system who answer to the senior officials in those branches of government. Executive agencies answer to the executive. I know, I too am a little bit shocked. But if you think that reducing the number of federal employees there are increases the power of the federal government, I'm not sure what kind of math you're using. I'm not sure if you know what kind of math you're using. It ain't working. And lastly, the imperialist dictatorship. So you already said the fascistic part, so you don't need the dictatorship part. You can't. A little redundant there, Skippy. The imperialist part, that the United States is going out and they're conquering. Okay, so the Trump has made some blusterous moves about being an imperialistic power by taking or partially controlling Greenfield. So when Hegseth goes down to Panama and says, we are going to make sure the Chinese do not control Panama, and instead we maintain Panamanian independence, that is the opposite of imperialism. That is the United States giving up something it has legitimate claim to, that Panama has not honored the contract or the terms of the treaty for, and is instead, encouraging and supporting and strengthening Panama. That ain't happening. Also, imperialist nations do not typically relinquish certain rights, powers, and authorities to other governments. That's not a thing imperialist powers do. Last case in point would be Japan. They weren't exactly turning over administrations left, right, and center to independent occupying authorities. That was not a thing. So the imperialism thing, no. And also the idea that you're going to list a bunch of adjectives. So you say like, kleptocratic, that's an objectively bad thing. Fascistic, that's an objectively bad thing. A dictatorship, that's an objectively bad thing. The imperialist thing, the argument that your culture and society should in fact be spread to places where there is anarchy is not in and of itself a terrible thing. It is not an objectively evil thing. By the way, do you know who pointed that out quite clearly? Gorbachev after the Soviet Union collapsed. In what is my favorite Cold War era Soviet Union interview, post-Soviet Union, Gorbachev said, when he was asked, what is the most successful campaign the Soviets ever actually launched against the United States? And Gorbachev laughed and said, we introduced an idea in the 60s that the United States was terrible because colonialism is in and of itself evil. And we associated the evil of really bad people with the term of colonialism and imperialism itself. Because that's something that communism is directly against, is, again, the idea that there is actual unitary functional power that answers to people instead of collective mob rule that still ends up being a dictatorship. So the argument that the left has all of this in mind and they're like all simultaneously working together to maintain this cohesive group against the fascistic, imperialist, kleptocratic government, I want you to know that you sound exactly as stupid as we notice. It ain't exactly coming off too strong. Yeah, the Illuminati thing. Thanks, producer Nick. All right, next question is over from Tom. And is this guy reading from a teleprompter? I'll answer that question right now. I am not reading from a teleprompter. I have a little here. I'll actually show you a little mirror on my phone with the screen turned off because transparency is cool. I see myself. Can you actually see it? You can't see it, can you? Oh, that was going to be cool. I thought, there it is. If you're watching, you can see that there's a little reflection. There's a little screen below a piece of glass in front of the lens so that I can see what the shot looks like. So that if my collar is sticking up or, I look like more of a doofus than usual, then you can see it. I don't read off a teleprompter because I do my research. Now, right here, I have a little computer. And that has my show notes in the comments section. So if I actually read it and see people answering my question about the autoclave, I can actually read it. I have bullet points and like the mail time question. So this particular question from Tom, see that segue? That's pretty nice. What do you see Trump actually doing to force China to back down? The answer is, I see that Donald Trump is very likely going to show one way or the other the Chinese that they are internationally isolated. I think that by allowing Scott Bessent to organize trade deals between South Korea and Japan and Vietnam and the United States, obviously, in which 0-for-0 tariffs are implemented, and those nations, and Taiwan as well, are strengthened and then propose direct tariffs towards China. And China has no economic trading partners of any worth. And Russia is not really in a position to help it. I guarantee you that was discussed with Steve Witkoff and Putin today. And Iran is not exactly doing too hot. Then China's international isolation will eventually cause Trump to, in one way or another, get a hold of Xi Jinping, and essentially say, your country's got some civil unrest going on. Things aren't looking too good. You're ready to back down. And then Xi will back down. That's my guess. Now, I'm not a tarot card reader. I passed third grade. And I'm not a meteorologist, although my weather studies and climatology classes in college were some of my favorite. I can't tell the future, but that's my best guess as of right now. All right, the last question is from Marie, 44. She asks if I'm ever going to... do we have any plans to do like a show from like the press room over in DC? Like, how does that work? That's not exactly what she asked. She actually asked if we've been invited to be a part of the new media seat that Carolyn Leavitt has over at the White House, that non-traditional markets that are not based out of DC. The answer is kind of. And the kind of is that the Daily Signal, which is whom I work for and write for and do this show for, we have Elizabeth Mitchell. She's our White House correspondent. She's incredibly capable. She's brilliant. I have a particular fondness for her work because she and I both write about a lot of education and family issues. And she's actually gotten to ask a lot of questions so far, both to Carolyn Leavitt. She's been on the traveling press team, been on Air Force One several times. The Daily Signal was banned from the White House press room during the Biden administration because the Biden administration kicked out a bunch of conservative organizations from being in the White House press room at all. So that was totally fine. Then you were allowed to do that then. Now, of course, the rules are different, and any press outlet can apply to be a part of the roving pool. And pretty soon, with the White House, Press Correspondents Association, are concerned, no longer driving that ship, that'll actually give some greater access. The other half of that question is, we have done shows from DC. Wherever I go, it's kind of rare for me to take days off. And so usually, I'll do the show. We kind of have like a to-go media bag, and I've done it from, Nashville and DC and Detroit and other places. Will that mean that someday we do something from, say, a particular new media row in the White House? I can neither confirm nor deny that. That brings us over to a question that I'm told by producer Nick is being asked a bit. Am I the real J.D. Vance? No. Although, I can say that it is kind of weird how Vance and my family, our vice president, the best looking vice president this country has ever had, just for the record. His family and my family both come from the same part of Kentucky. We were both largely raised by our grandmothers. While I grew up in Middletown, Indiana, he grew up in Middletown, Ohio. And we both were accepted into very prestigious institutions, although he actually graduated from his prestigious institution and I wanted an education degree instead. So I do like the comparisons. I think they're fun. I think that pretty much every white guy with a beard in his 20s and 30s and 40s kind of looks the same. Like if you put me, Matt Walsh, and J.D. Vance in a room, I'm not saying that our wives would confuse us, but it would get a couple of head turns. So those things all said, I appreciate that. And over in Indianapolis, Hammer and Nigel on WIBC, I appreciate them getting that rumor started so quickly. I'll take one more particular question. I want to see this. Oh, okay, great. This last one is over from Ryan. Last question here. This is actual normal, decent question. All right. So, didn't Trump commit insider trading or market manipulation? He says insider trading. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say a larger crime, market manipulation, because he announced that he was going to reverse tariff policy. No, that's not market manipulation. That's not. By the way, even if Trump announced that he was getting ready to do that, that's also not insider trading information. Here's the problem. The President of the United States is the number one person that the markets listen to. Every word that comes out of their mouth. And it's not hidden what the stock market wants. There are entire people who will tell you what they want on the stock market floor. It's like the idea of going to a restaurant. They're listening to you to find out what they are going to make. And if you order a steak, they're not going to bring you a chicken. And if they do, you're going to send it back. That'd be a bad restaurant. The U.S. market doesn't work like that. It works as though it provides what in fact is given to it. And so, well, there were a lot of trading calls that were made right before the president got up and made an announcement. So, oh man, that means that Trump called his buddies and was like, all right, I'm going to say this and then everyone's going to make a lot of cash. Well, Trump did make a Truth Social post and said, hey, now's a great time to buy. So I guess that would be the very first case of outsider trading in U.S. history. Incredible. But to address the argument face to face, when the President of the United States is confirmed to release a statement, basically you have insiders in the White House, right? Politico has people that they talk to based on the sources of anonymity. So do the New York Times, so do Fox News, so do we. Every outlet has special members inside an administration who are willing to talk to us, tell us some things, so that we can basically get the story ready and moving by the time they make the press comment, by the time they make the press statement. This cuts down on the social media, infinite loopy aluminum foil theories about whatever. And it also cuts down on some of the chaos. So if an individual says, hey, Trump is getting ready to make a statement about the market, then it's a pretty safe bet amid the tariffs that were currently going on and the pushback that was going on and Scott Bessent clearly pulling for something. Politico had reported that Scott Bessent went down to Mar-a-Lago in Florida over the weekend to try to convince Trump to pull a lot of the tariffs off of the rest of the world and to give a middle finger to China. Politico openly reported that. And by the way, just to make this incredibly clear, that's why Monday morning I woke up and I bought stock. I was like, this isn't going to last. I thought it's a great time to buy because you buy the dip. In my own experience, not financial advice to you, so that none of you sue me for taking my advice incorrectly and losing your house and the farm and being houseless like that one fat trans person. So I'm going to encourage each and every one of you that if you're going to talk about insider trading, saying I'm the president of the United States and I am announcing that the thing that I declared is going to be different. You're like, well, that's market manipulation. Well, yeah, he's one of the cogs of the market. That's like saying, I pressed on the gas pedal and I got gas. Whoa. Yeah, braking. When you got rain clouds, you get rain. I don't know what else to tell you. That's secrets, but we're going to have all the House investigate AOC out there. Oh, this insider trading is very bad. Nothing. Radio silence on Pelosi until AOC started running for leadership of the party. Radio silence on actual objective congressional members talking about including or stripping certain parts of bills and tipping off certain corporate lobbyists. That's insider trading. That's what the statute says. The President of the United States issuing foreign policy declarations is not market manipulation. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but if the President of the United States and I are having a conversation, he's like, Tony, I've been doing some thinking, and Luxembourg in Europe, I don't like the Luxembourgians. No one can even find it on a map, and they're so yippy and proud and arrogant. I think tomorrow the United States is going to announce that we are withdrawing all protections from Luxembourg. What do you think about that? And I would, I don't know anything about Luxembourg. And so I'd say, we drove through it once when I was in high school. That's what I got, Mr. President. What am I going to do after that conversation with the president? I'm going to go short any stock associated with Luxembourg. And then when the president gets in front of the world the next day and goes, Luxembourg is the worst ever that you've ever seen before. And then J.D. Vance goes, did you even say thank you once, Luxembourg, to the United? You even say thank you once? And then the stocks with Luxembourg crash and I win the short. Is that market manipulation and insider trading? No, it's called foreign policy. You're like, but that's really closely linked. Uh-huh. Yeah, that is in fact very closely linked. You may not like it. I may not like it. I would love to hear your solution. The only one is that we allow the President of the United States to again go behind closed doors and make decisions. I'm kind of okay, by the way, with the President saying, it's a really great time to buy right now. And then people buying the stock and then seeing stocks go up. I'm kind of a fan of such particular things. All right, with that all said, I'd say that is quite enough. Quite enough of the Tony Kinnett cast this particular evening. We're going to be back over on Monday. Now, next week is going to be a little bit different because there will be Good Friday and then Easter following that. We're going to have Monday off. We might have a little something special for y'all, but have a wonderful evening. If you are, in fact, of the Jewish or the Orthodox community, have a wonderful Passover. I highly recommend, because we're going to be watching it in our family here, the Prince of Egypt, which is the most phenomenal animated movie of all time, and it's not even close. So I'm excited to show that to my daughter for the first time. I'm thrilled because the music in that is second to none. So have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you real soon. God bless you. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC.